Cricket is quite possibly the most complex and strange sport in the world. The gentleman's game, as it is so often branded, is the only game in the world whose rules are often under the interpretation of those taking part in the match, and can differ massively depending on where you reside. The most notorious example is the act of running out of the non-striker's end, or better known as man-catting. In the subcontinent, it is seen as a crafty and clever way of exposing a batter who is not concentrating on their running or trying to gain an advantage, whereas in the predominantly English-speaking countries, it is largely seen as a disgraceful and conniving way of dismissing a batter. But, whether you like it or not, man-catting is in the rules of the game, and therefore it is legal, and as a result, whether you see it fit to be done or not, if you are dismissed in this way, you are out. Never before has there been a test match where the cricket rulebook has been in greater effect than in the second Ashes test at Lords, where Australia bowled out England to take a 2-0 lead in the series, despite Ben Stokes playing another era-defining innings. The biggest flashpoint of the match was obviously the Jonny Bairstow dismissal, in which he was called out by Alex Carey and had the walk-off for 10, bringing to a close what could have been an important innings in the context of the game. This video will discuss the dismissal, the ethics of it, and the impact it may have on the remainder of the series. Let's get into it, analysing every single step of what happened. For starters, let's play the dismissal in real time.
That's another short ball. Oh, now this is going to be interesting. Jonny Bairstow's walked out of his crease here. This could well be out.
So Bairstow ducks a bouncer from Carey, and after scratching around at the crease, leaves it, with Alex Carey having a ping at the stumps. The umpire gives it out, and Bairstow leaves, begrudgingly. First of all, as I'm sure you all saw on the TV coverage, Bairstow leaves his crease multiple times in the balls prior to the dismissal, with the Australians obviously making note of this. The wicket was not a spur-of-the-moment decision by Carey, and may have been pointed out by Renshaw under the helmet, as you can see his anticipation when the ball is thrown. A misconception is that Bairstow was deemed to have been run out. Apparently this was shown on the scoreboard throughout the day before being corrected. This is entirely false, as he was given out stumped. This may seem like a minor detail, but it will make sense as to why I need to point this out in a second. That is the base information that you need. Now let's look at whether it should be out as set out by the laws of the game. Law 20.11 states that the ball is deemed to be dead when it finally settles in the hands of the wicket-keeper or the bowler. Now a lot of English fans and pundits have used this law to justify their belief that the ball should have been called dead because it hit the keeper's gloves. This is false by the wording of the law. For a ball to be settled would be to insinuate that no further act is taken by the keeper, which as we know is not the case as he then enacted a stumping. If this law was taken at a strict, face value level, then perhaps you can claim that the ball is dead. However, then stumpings wouldn't exist, and that doesn't make sense. Let's look at some other relevant laws. Under 20.12, the law reads that the ball shall be considered to be dead when it is clear to the bowler's end umpire that the fielding side and both batters at the wicket have ceased to regard it as in play. In this case, the fielding side has seen the opportunity to still take a wicket under the current delivery, and therefore the ball cannot be deemed dead as it is still in play. Law 20.3 indicates that the call of over cannot be made before the ball is deemed dead. The batting team in this instance has indicated post-match that they felt that the over was finished.
The things that I obviously had to consider when I was out there was the fact that it was the last ball of the over. I very shortly questioned the umpires whether they had called over. Both umpires were making the gesture towards walking to their opposite position of being umpires.
That is false, as the ball was still in play, and as such, the umpires chose not to call over. Neither team decides when the over has concluded. That is the jurisdiction of the umpires. So as stated by the laws of the game, we can gather that the ball was not dead. Let's move on to the laws of stumpings. Law 39.11 states that the striker is out-stumped if they have not attempted a run when their wicket is fairly put down by the wicketkeeper without the intervention of another fielder. The batter involved was clearly not attempting a run, and as a result the wicket is deemed as a stumping rather than a run out. The batter is clearly out of their crease, and as such, a stumping was legally affected. There is just one law that states that the stumping can be overturned when they are out of their ground, and that is Law 39.31, which states that they have left their crease to avoid injury. The batter in question obviously was not avoiding injury when they left their crease. So, this is my final verdict surrounding the dismissal of Johnny Bairstow. If you are going by the law book, Bairstow is 110% out. He made an error in judgment, losing concentration, and the Australians took advantage of the situation, dismissing him in a legal manner. Now that we've established that, let's move on to the fun part, the spirit of cricket. Let me just start this part off by saying that the spirit of cricket is, in my opinion, so stupid, and whenever the term is thrown around, I cringe so much. Of course you want a sport like cricket to be played in good spirits and players to be taking part within the spirit of the game. But what annoys me the most is the dictation of the spirit of cricket is usually utilised when one cannot argue the case about the laws of the game. The sole reason that the Bairstow stumping is even mentioning the spirit of the game is because there is not a single law that states what Alex Carey did was against the rules of the game. The cries of same old Aussies, always cheating, echoing around Lords was just ridiculous, to be honest, because let's face it, this wasn't cheating, it was a stumping. For me, the spirit of the game is players applauding the opposition in their final test match, or shaking an opponent's hand at the end of a game. If you believe what Alex Carey did was outside of the spirit of the game, that is fine, and it is your opinion. But you then don't get to force it on me or other cricket fans who don't see it that way. Because the spirit of cricket is not a set rulebook like the MCC list of laws, and as such, it is firmly up to interpretation. The spirit of cricket card was thrown around last year when Deepti Sharma man-catted Charlie Dean. Personally, I am not a very big fan of man-cats, but I also understand that it is in the laws of the game, and as such, Deepti had the right to do so. She didn't break any rules, and neither did Alex Carey. To use the spirit of cricket as an argument for your case is foolish, because it only ever seems to come up when it suits your own team's situation. The writing of this video has been really tough, because I want to present as unbiased and neutral a perspective as I possibly can on the subject. This is already my second crack at the script, as I felt I was too emotional when I began writing it last night. Regardless, here we go. I think that the reaction of Johnny Bairstow, Ben Stokes, Brendan McCullum, as well as some English people in the crowds, borders on disgraceful. Now let me just say, I admire all of those people, as well as the English crowds, greatly. I have done numerous videos recently where I've talked about my fascination for this English side. But what we are now starting to see is what the team looks like when it begins to suffer a couple of defeats in a row. I want to start with Bairstow, who seemed bewildered when he was given out and angry after the match. If I was in Bairstow's shoes on a Saturday grade cricket match and was dismissed that way, I would be absolutely livid at first. He probably felt that he was hard done by as he was dismissed without really playing a false shot. But what I think Bairstow needs to realise is that he wasn't cheated. He made an error and the Aussies took advantage of it as such. All he had to do was stay in his crease for another 5 seconds and he would have been fine. But he didn't. One thing we know about Johnny Bairstow is that despite being a fantastic cricketer, he can often have a moment of madness where he plays a false shot or loses a bit of concentration. That's just who he is, and you have to take the good with the bad from him. And to further add to my case, this is him trying to do the same thing to Labuschagne 2 days before. Marnus watches the ball the whole way through and identifies that Bairstow is having a go at the stumps and stays in his crease, executing a higher level of focus and ensuring he doesn't lose his wicket. I'm going to talk about Stokes and McCullum as a collective, as I think that their comments post-game sum up where England is at currently. I mentioned after the last match that England chalked up the first test as a moral victory of sorts, as they believed Australia only had a chance because of them, they played all the cricket in the game, and were the aggressors, and blah blah blah. That was all weird enough, but they went into overdrive after the Lord's test match, Stokes kicked it off post-match by saying he wouldn't want to win a test match in such a way and stated that it was going against the spirit of cricket.
And I think if the shoe was on the other foot, I would probably just have to have a little think around the sort of whole spirit of the game and things like that. So, look, it's happened, it's out, but...
McCullum also lent in the same direction, stating he doesn't believe there'll be any beers shared with the Australian team anytime soon. Those remarks are a mere smokescreen used to kick up the social media storm and keep the focus away from the English team. Stokes is well aware about the Australian team's recent history when it comes to cheating and poor culture, and as a result the close eye the media keeps on them. By making the comment he did about the spirit of cricket, it adds fuel to the fire and shields his team's poor performance. If the story is about the Australian team's poor behaviour, it is the perfect distraction away from the struggles of his side. Because let's be honest, Bazball is one loss away from being really on the chopping block. By suggesting the Australians cheated or played out of the spirit of the game, it almost comes across as another attempt to void the match and hide the underperformance of his team. McCullum saying that he won't have any beers with the Aussies after the series brings up a few things for me. To say that knowing that it was well within the laws is one thing, but after you yourself have had similar incidents in the past, that's really interesting to me. A lot of people are talking about the Mirrorley incident, where McCullum dismissed him while he was celebrating a Sangakkara 100. But another one to note is this one, which occurred in the Champions Trophy in 2009. It is practically the same as what happened. The best part is McCullum wasn't the one to recall him. It was Daniel Vettori who was captain at the time. And guess who Daniel Vettori is coaching with right now? That's right, Australia. So then, on another level, does that mean he's annoyed at Daniel Vettori and isn't going to have a beer with his old teammate? None of this makes any sense. Bringing up old incidents feels stupid and salty, but the context is necessary in this case to understand the motivations of what Stokes and Baz are saying. McCullum's threat of no beers post-series is empty, shallow, and odd, but he knows what all of the world already knew. England are in big trouble, and they need a serious boost. And that boost may just be some fire in the belly. We saw what happened after the incident. The crowd got right into the game. Broad came in and became the steward of old, taunting the Australians. The best one he said was to Carey, saying that he will be remembered for that.
Stokes.
Don't get it mixed. Broad knows what he was doing. He was trying to bait the Australians' emotions, and it was working until Stokes got out. This isn't the ultra chill Bazball we have come to know, but it's what England needs. I want to finish on the actions of the long room. Lords is a strange place when you think about it. Does it have a rich history and never-ending traditions? Absolutely. It's a beautiful place and it is the home of English cricket. But the members were terribly out of line with their behaviour at the lunch break. The Aussies, a touring team being jostled and harassed as they walked through the long room, was disgraceful. And before I go on, yes, I know it happens in Australia too. I know it happens in India. It happens in South Africa. It's just as wrong in England as it is anywhere else in the world. But what I will say is this. For a touring team to walk through there like zoo animals and be heckled by members of the public when they acted according to the laws written in that very building is nothing short of a disgrace. I understand the English players and coaches' frustration with what occurred, and with the situation they now find themselves in. I do sympathise with their anger towards the dismissal of Bairstow. But now, due to their comments post-match, which has whipped social media and the English fans into a frenzy, we are now stuck talking about a stumping. Nothing more, nothing less. I should be here recounting Smith's outstanding 100, the fantastic Ashes debut at Josh Tong, or the mesmerising innings by Ben Stokes. But instead I'm here talking about this non-event, which has been blown way out of proportion. Alex Carey acted within the laws of the game to stump Johnny Bairstow off the bowling of Cameron Green. And Pat Cummins was well within his rights to continue with the appeal. If you think that any of that is cheating or unfair, all I have to say is this. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Case closed.
All a terrible conspiracy, but in fact it's an absolutely lousy bit of cricket by him. Just lifting his foot. Well, there he goes. Brilliant work by Johnny Bairstow. A wicket out of absolutely nothing there.
All keepers do it. Batsmen probably don't like it, do they?
I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's within the rules of the game, and that's how it is. It's happened at the highest level, and I'm sure it's happened at the lowest as well.